Okay, we're live. Let's see if that overhead works yet. Nope, no overhead today. I don't know. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Hello to everybody. We've got a few people looking. 31 people looking, as a matter of fact. 32. Let's see, Tony Ridlin is asking if I'm going to do a video about the magic band, which is 6 meters, and the answer is probably at some point I will do that. The radio has 6 meters. I believe my antenna has 6 meters on it, so if not, we can make a dipole for that quite easily. I had some horrible dental work done today, and my mouth is very, very sore. So I may end up having to end this early. We'll see. Let's see. I've got lots of questions here. The new form seems to be working well. That's at KE0OG.net/ask-Dave is a good place to go, and you can put your question in there. I don't have it set up to where you can add attachments yet, but if you have attachments you want me to see, go ahead and send it to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. hamradioanswers@gmail.com. Let's see, we've got Mark Waldrop is on, Daniel Lampkin, Tony Ridlin, Warren Parsons, Bill Malman, Warren Parsons again, Yankee India 3, Whiskey Hotel Radio, Neil Marsh, Ken Edmonds, Ishmael is there. Hello, Ishmael. Optical Man 1, Jeff from Sioux Falls. Tom Frericks, good evening from the Front Range. I still owe a video on the Nano VNA, and Tom gave me a whole bunch of stuff on that. I'll have to put that together. Yeah, I'm going to turn on the fan here just a sec. Yeah, LM had put up some antenna, did some antenna work. Yeah, those tall poles, I mean, they don't look like they're that hard to move around, and they're not necessarily light, but they do get a very severe bending moment when they start to fall over, and it's hard to disagree with physics on those things there. Victor Alpha 7, Whiskey X-Ray Zulu, hello. Let's see, Jim Hankins, KD8MTY, Evan Moore, Man of Means, Alfred Archer, good evening. Sean McGrath from Rhode Island. Sean, I don't know if you saw my last video. I did an aviation video in an attempt to properly learn the pattern. I keep getting the radio calls wrong, and the big issue is when to use flaps and so on. Everybody, I'm on my fourth flight instructor right now, and I don't know, I guess I just wear them out. And everyone has a different method for doing everything, so I have to get current on what this particular flight instructor is doing. Sue Mosher is my flight instructor. She's very positive, very upbeat. Yeah, she's always finding good things to say. Anthony Becerra, take care if we have to leave early because of your dental work. We will understand. Let me tell you what horrible thing happened to me today. I had all my bottom teeth taken out, and I have a denture in place with that. And they put some implants in, 3. And eventually, when all the swelling settles down, they'll put in a denture that will snap on to those 3 implants and stay in place. That'll be very nice. Right now, it's just a floating denture, and everything, of course, is very sore because of the work done today. And I'm a little bit high, I guess I should say. I took some hydrocodone, which is Vicodin, about 3 o'clock. It's 7 now. And took 800 milligrams of ibuprofen about an hour ago. And in between the two, it kind of keeps the pain down a little bit. But I wanted to do this live stream because I want to get some feedback on my one aviation video. I've got a whole bunch of questions. Should I start an aviation channel and move everything over there? Or do you guys mind an occasional aviation video on this channel? The one that I did last night was very pure aviation and no ham radio in it at all. I'm not a teacher of aviation, I'm a student, so it's definitely not a training video. It's sort of my impression of what I'm being trained to do and trying to bring it together. I have a spatial memory. It's not linear, it's spatial. And my wife teases me all the time that if she wants to hide something from me, all she has to do is move it a foot. Because I remember everything by where it is oriented, and if something is moved a foot, truly I can't find it. So, W3DON says hello from Pennsylvania. Let's see, KG7ORH turning in from work. Good evening, Dave. Do you ever go on the air with a live stream? That would be fun. I'll have to do something along those lines. Instead of talking, how about doing the feed entirely in CW? Yeah, oh boy. A little hard to talk. I don't know if I'll make it the full hour. We'll see. Jim Hankins is getting ready to put up a big IR. I have the Step IR Big IR, which is my vertical antenna. It's my primary station antenna. I also have a hex beam, an MFJ hex beam out in back too. It's quasi-permanent. I mean, it's just, I have no intentions of changing it. If I do change it, I'm going to move it further, a little further away from the house where it's not so visible from the street. Yeah, teeth are really important overall health. I don't have any I don't have any left on the bottom, but they did give me a denture for the bottom. What they're going to do, they've got 3 little implants, and when everything settles down and is healed, the denture will snap on to those 3 implants, thus staying in place. So, yeah, the narco stuff is nasty stuff. Okay, it was interesting viewing. We don't mind. Okay, enjoy your videos wherever they reside. Once I get my license, I'll do videos kind of, just like I do ham radio, a mixture of the technical and what you can do with it. And I do see several aviation channels that just show flying around You know, as much as I love flying around, and I do, I don't see the point of the video. What is the video trying to say? You know, the one I put up last night, a clear thing. Here's how you do a pattern. Just simple. Take off, come around, land again. And that's the pattern. Michael Bridgewater is also working on getting his pilot license. Good luck to you. Is the big IR 1-to-1 SWR on all the bands? No, it is not. It's about 1.3 or 1.4 to 1. The reason is the base fed verticle on the ground with radials has an input impedance of about 30 ohms. So that's going to give you about a 1.6 to 1 SWR right there. So unless you put a tuner on it, you won't get any better than that, which is fine. The tuner on the antenna here adjusts the length of the antenna up and down, and you can get it to the point to where there is no reactance. And that's fine, but the impedance, the resistive part of the impedance is about 30 ohms, so it will not be 1-to-1. I have in the past said, well, just use the tuner inside the radio with it and bring it to 1-to-1. But I got some feedback from the people at Step IR saying, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. So, okay, I don't see the problem with it, but they do. From Seattle, Neil Marsh says, hi Neil, can you use ham radio in the air? Yes, you can. And in fact, let's see, I have heard from somebody who has used it in the air that if you go like on 2 meters, 5.2 simplex, you cover a very, very broad area. Well, one of the problems is people on the ground can hear you, but they cannot hear the person that you are talking to. But if you keep it short, that's fine. You can have a lot of fun with that, as a matter of fact. At 30,000 feet, you could go theoretical about 200 miles, but I'm not flying at 30,000 feet. That's Class A airspace. I won't be anywhere near that. It's more up. You can get within 100 miles or so, or something like that, just with a handheld with a rubber duck. FM, the nationwide simplex calling frequency on 2 meter FM is 146.52, and you can get it quite right there. Benjamin Otto says my aviation videos will probably be better than the dirt bike videos. I did pivot the channel quite a number of years ago in about 2010, 11, somewhere in there, where I stopped making dirt bike videos and started making ham radio videos, because people are interested in the ham radio videos. They're not interested in somebody just riding a dirt bike around. So, is the pattern the same as a touch and go? No. The pattern is actually the loop you fly. You go out, turn, 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 and land. That's the pattern. And there's standard ways of doing it. A touch and go is where you hit the ground and then take off again. In the pattern, what I've been doing is coming down to a full stop, getting off the runway, talking to my instructor about what we can do differently, and then doing it again. But you can do touch and goes if you want, if what you're practicing is just one aspect of it. And you know, like when I finally solo, I will be doing a lot of solo touch and goes and so on to practice the pattern work and so on. He gets his teeth yanked out and still holds this live stream while I'm trying. I really care about this channel. I care a great deal. Hello from Atlanta, from Gordon. The W9NAF, Michael says hi. Balloon payload and tracking. You know, if you want to watch some interesting balloon stuff, take a look at what W5KUB is doing. He is launching hydrogen-filled balloons designed to go up about 40,000 feet. And they've got whisper coming out of them. I mean, the circuit board he's got on that thing's only about that big. And the total payload is just a few ounces. And they're solar powered, so they only operate in sunlight. He's had one that went all the way around the world a couple times. Others get caught in storms. Normally, the weather takes place in the troposphere. But you get very big thunderstorms, and they can push up into the stratosphere. And so the balloon can run across it there. Appreciate a vlog in your continuing aviation education. Thought of getting my private pilot's license for many years, and since retiring and now have the time. Is age a big factor? I don't think so. There are lots of people doing it. Now, here's the trick. To get a private pilot's license, you have to pass a Class 3 medical. And there's a lot to that. If you're a younger person, that's no big deal, but it gets harder as you get older. If you have never taken that medical exam, which I have not, and you want to just get your sport pilot license, then all you need to pass is a driver's license. They figure if the state will let you drive, then you must be okay to fly a sport plane. Light sport aircraft, which is what I have. Now the thing is, if you flunk that medical, and this is a weirdness in the regulations, if you flunk that medical, then the sport pilot option is not open to you. So think about that very carefully before you take that medical. And if sport pilot will do for you, just get the sport pilot license. It allows you to get up and fly around. You can fly across the country. What you cannot do is fly at night, and you can only have one passenger. It's a two-seater airplane. Okay, and they don't teach navigation with VOR, stuff like that, but you can use your GPS. So, aviation is a hobby on my bucket list. My wife says this one is already expensive enough. Well, I will tell you my experience with aviation. You know, in ham radio, you kind of develop an intuition as to what things are going to cost. See, I got to get a coax. It's going to be $1.25 a foot. It's, you know, add a zero to everything. In other words, multiply by 10. I had the oil changed on my airplane. One of the requirements is to safety wire the drain plug, and I don't know how to do that, so I let the local aviation folks at Delta Airport at Smiling Aviation, the fixed base operator there, do it for me. They charged me $165, and I supplied the oil and filter. So, you know, you can go down to a local outfit and get the oil changed in your car for a fraction of that. So, you know, and I supplied the oil and filter, so it's just expensive. I'm going to have to learn how to safety wire. I can see. Now, the thing is that's interesting. Normally, you as a pilot are not allowed to work on your airplane. If it's a certificated airplane, you have to have certificated mechanics work on it. Well, mine is an experimental airplane. It was built from a kit. It was never type certificated or anything like that. And, pilots can change their own oil anyway, but it's just kind of one of those things that was very nice to allow somebody else to do, but I think I'm going to be doing it myself to save money from now on. When I connect a VNA to VHF antenna with a coax laying on the ground, yeah, the SWR and everything will change when you lift it off the ground. That's because your system is not grounded like it might be if you were using a mobile radio or something like that. And so it's trying to be a coax and trying to be a balanced feed line at the same time, and it just gets a little weird. I watched your video on installing PL259s on cable, and you didn't mention anything on solder types. The most common solder is 6040 tin lead. There's other types. There's a 6733 or something like that. There's also lead-free solder, which is difficult to work with because you have to use much higher temperatures. All of the electronics built today has to be done with lead-free solder if you buy it commercially. Hams still use the solder with the lead in it. When you solder, there's those fumes that come up. Those fumes are from the boiling rosin core in there, the rosin that is the flux that is cleaning the joint. It's not lead fumes. You'd have to get it a lot hotter for lead fumes. Okay, and from India, Victor Uniform 2, Kilo Oscar Charlie. Okay. Had this foolish if I win the lottery fantasies about a gyrocopter. Gyrocopter is a light sport aircraft too. And so the same rules that govern light sport aircraft work for that. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Now, I don't think I'll do a real long live stream this evening, but I did want to get on. Let's go through some questions. This one is from Jack Gresham, KD4LEA. It says, hello Dave, I really enjoyed your video on measuring the power output on your QRP rig with an oscilloscope. It occurred to me that an oscilloscope might be a fun way to learn about circuits simply by making measurements. Yes, it is true. Now, an oscilloscope is not usually an instrument that a ham gets early in their amateur radio career, if only because of the expense, and they're not nearly as useful as a simple little Harbor Freight multimeter, but they can be a great deal of fun. I got it because it allows me to demonstrate things. He's also interested in monitoring and tracking weather balloons, and this fall and winter he's going to try to do a little bit with that. Dr. Joe Taylor, that's N1GT, mentioned it's possible to work the big EMEA stations on 432 using JT65, a single Yagi and 100 watts. So I'm excited about trying that. And that would be fun. That's moon bounce. Moon bounce requires a lot of preparation and a lot of perseverance. So keep it. He's also mentioning he's a CFI, a certified flight instructor. He flew for the airlines and is currently an air carrier operations inspector. Jack, I appreciate that very much. I had one guy volunteer to come give me my practical exam if it were for private pilot, but I'm doing sport pilot. And that is an issue that's unsolved for me, which is finding an examiner for sport pilot out here in western Colorado. There really aren't any. I need to get something here. Okay, this is from Warren Parsons, KA0KXI. My question last week about ground plane on the truck, you said just use the roof. I didn't mean VHF or UHF. Oh, okay. What value do you use for a quarter wave vertical? Well, it's quarter wave. You have to take into account the velocity factor of the material you use to make the wave. Wires, the velocity factor for wires is about 0.95, and it's about the same for tubing, 0.95. So that's your old 468 over F, which will give you a half wavelength. You divide that in half, and you get the length of the vertical. And he talks about some of the calculations he did here in his spreadsheet. He's also curious if I ever joined a writers group. I did for a while, didn't work out very well. I wrote some sci-fi books. They're available on Amazon. And let's see, took some software engineering from an IBM engineer out of Rochester, New York. And that was from Warren Parsons KA0KXI in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. And here in North Dakota, they're having quite a problem with the pandemic. This one is from Benjiman KJ4JO. He said, I couldn't figure out how to reply to your airplane video. I got lots of comments on it, so you should have been able to comment on the video, like any other video. He just wants to remind me to watch out for other aircraft on final. We had one problem once where we were turning to final at the same time somebody was sneaking in straight in, and they took evasive maneuvers, which was very fortunate that they did that. He has a home-built Zenith cruiser, and it's November 23 Bravo Papa. That's great. That's great. This one is from Mark Johnson KD6SCC. I'm a board member of the Desert Radio Transmitting Society in Palm Springs, California, also known as the Desert Rats. In the past, we held classroom training sessions for Tech Journal and Extra, but with COVID-19, that is on hold until things get back to normal. In the interim, could we get your permission to provide a link to your YouTube sessions on our website? Yes, absolutely. If you go to, and I'm going to do this on the screen here, and we're going to go to we'll just pick a video at random, like the flying video here. Okay.
Hi, I'm Dave
Here's
Casler.
where it
I'm a
starts.
radio call sign KE0OG.
Now, I'm going to pause
This is
right
not a
here.
ham radio.
You see where it says share right here? It's got the number of thumbs up, 138, number of thumbs down, 2. Which, by the way, is about the normal ratio. Normally I get about 101. See where it says share? Now share, they give you a link right here. And you can put that in an email. This link right here. Put that in an email. Or you click on embed, and you see this code right here that's in the iframe. That code right there you can put into a website, and it will show the video just like that. Okay, and when they play it, it will give my channel credit for it and everything like that. So those are the two ways that you can share, and that is just fine to do that. Get rid of that one and get this one where we are. Okay. Okay. Rip the stitches. What they've done for this dental thing, they took all the teeth out, and then they put this denture over the top of it. And what the denture over the top of it gives me some interim teeth until everything heals. And then that covers all the sutures and all the holes and everything like that to protect them. And so that's what they've done in there. Frederick Rurump went to Aviation High School and earned his aircraft and power plant tickets. Safety wire isn't hard to do. Harbor Freight has the toolkit. I'll have to get that. Thank you. Okay. Watched your video on the Rig Expert AA55 unboxing. Are you planning to do a full review? I have to take a look at that and see what I'm going to do. Can you do something about jamming or radio noise generator? Do you know what band spark gap radios work? Yeah, the problem with spark gaps is that they work across every band. A spark creates what's called broadband noise, and it covers all the bands. Now, what the old spark people did was try to filter that so they could put out a much narrower bandwidth signal, which was only partially successful with the filters that were available at the time. And that's why they got rid of spark, because it's extremely inefficient. You can put 1,000 watts into a spark and get about 3 or 4 watt signal on the air. But that's why we don't use spark anymore. There were a lot of people when we went to continuous wave transmitters, or CW, which is the origin of the word CW, continuous instead of spark, which were so-called damped waves. It worked. A lot of people held out. They wanted their spark. They wanted their spark. They wouldn't make the change. They wouldn't make the change. That's people. People are like that even today. So, I have a Harbor Freight multimeter. Yeah, the Harbor Freight multimeters do not accurately measure let's see, the RMS voltage of non-sine wave waveforms, but you run into that so infrequently that it's not really worth bothering with. You can get $30 or $40 voltmeters that will measure it accurately, but I just use the oscilloscope and do the conversion. Okay, I am not a Dune reader. I know a lot of people are very much a fan of that. How can I build an RF transmitter that works from 1 hertz? Is it even possible to build something from 1 hertz and 2 above? Nobody talks about the bands below AM. Oh, on the contrary, a lot of people do talk about the long wave bands. This is something that you can get more information if you look for VLF. We have ham radios has 2 bands now below the AM broadcast bands. Okay. Who would sunband a Dave Casler video? Well, there are people who would do it. Okay. Yes, the sparks do come from the power company. Okay, so we talked about the ability to either send a link to one of the videos or to embed a video. Now, some channels choose not to allow people to embed videos in their websites, but I choose to allow it. Yes, the spark gap transmitter would. By the way, the ARRL maintains a spark gap transmitter at headquarters, and they will demonstrate it occasionally. This one is from Greg, Kilo Echo 8, Kilo Delta Kilo. Seems that I read that you could use a three-prong plug as a ground after you cut the hot and neutral prong off. Connect the plug to your system, then connect to the house service ground. Will this work? I do not recommend that, no. That is the utility ground. It's designed for utility ground reasons. We're going to bond our ham radio station ground to the utility ground, but the ground wires that go through the house are quite lengthy and act as great antennas and will tend to be very noisy as grounds. Plus, the potential there is not always zero. If you have a ground fault in something, you can actually get a voltage across that ground, so you don't want to do that. Get your own ground rod. As you go to Ask Dave number 8, and it talks about the ground rod and everything like that. Dwane, it's B-A-A-D-E, Baade. Watch your videos often for your pilot training. I saw a video you might find interesting. Slips versus skids and stalls. And he tells me where I can find it. I'll have to go take a look at that. One of the things that I have to do, demonstrate on my check ride, is a slip to a landing. And so my instructor recently taught me about slips. They're kind of weird. You're supposed to be able to do them to get down to the ground. And I told her, I'm not ready to do them near the ground. I want to be like 2,000 feet up when I do them. And then we'll try them. I'll get better at them. Okay. Heard of Olivia for the first time. Olivia is one of many different digital modes that you can use with the sound card. If you get FL Digi and are set up for PSK31, or for that matter for WJTX, you can use Olivia. Olivia has extraordinarily good capability in the presence of noise and bad channels. However, it's quite slow, and you don't hear a lot of it on the air. But if you get on the air with somebody and say, hey, let's try Olivia, you can do that very easily. Okay. Is there SSB on the amateur long wave bands? I think it's allowed, but most people are using digital on them. They're not very wide. The bands are not very wide. All I've read about code, slow code at that. Okay. Okay, this is from Fabian. He's in Germany. He has his Class A license there. He loves homebrew, QRP, and now he wants to learn CW. Okay. He has a question: what would he do to measure and tune the micro BITX single sideband signal on my oscilloscope? Making me crazy because I can't find an answer when I see your videos. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'll do, Fabian. I'll do a video. I've got my version 6 micro BITX, and I'll use that to show how we can look at single sideband on the spectrum scope and on the oscilloscope. Okay? Okay, this is from Micheal K8EKE. I don't really get out of the house anymore due to COVID. You're not alone. My HT from home, even with a 19-inch mag mount, is more often out of range of the repeaters than in, or so it seems. So I want to buy or make an antenna to mount on my house for my HT, but will soon feed a VHF UHF mobile transceiver I plan to buy. Unfortunately, I don't know what I don't know. That's what McNamara said. I see lots of information on chokes, balance, grounding, low loss, coax, lightning protection, all of which you can ignore for this. Get an antenna, some coax, and connect everything. I would ground the antenna so that it bleeds off the static charge that's on it. Let's look up an antenna for you. I should put this in the... okay, we're going to go to the screen. I think I've got audio. Yep. We're going to go to MFJ Enterprises. And we want VHF UHF antenna. Yeah, let's see. Their new website, they've got some work to do here. Quarter wave ground plane. There it is. Okay. Here's your antenna. This antenna right here is a quarter wave ground plane. It mounts on a little pole. You can use the chain link fence top rail, or for that matter, you can mount this around one of the pipes that already comes up through your roof for vents. And it's got a little bit of a coil here, and so it operates on 144 and 440. It's a quarter wave ground plane, and you will find that this antenna is $50. Will do a very good job for you. Okay, that's the MFJ 1754. Is a good antenna you can put on your roof and use with UHF and VHF. You can even use it with a handheld. Now, I do suggest that whatever you mount it to, you run a wire all the way to your ground rod. What that will do is, as the wind blows across this thing, and build up a little bit of static charge, and you want that to go away. Okay? So, that's what I'd recommend for that. Let's see. Most common Olivia format 8500, I think that is, but I haven't played with it very much. Want to learn CW? No, don't start at 20 words a minute. What you want to do is start the characters at 20 words a minute. Actually 18 if you're going to do the Farnsworth method. So each character is real fast, and then you put a lot of space in between them. So like da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And then you learn each character the way it sounds. And eventually you can start taking the space out of it there. What is FT8? FT8 is a digital mode that you can use with sound card and things like that. And if you're set up for packet or WJTX or any of those things like that, you can use FT8. It's a lot of the newer radios, like the reference station radio, have sound cards built in. Some of them don't, so you have to use a signal link. I've got one right up there. It's extremely minimalist. You exchange location, meaning grid square, you exchange signal reports and call signs, and that's it. And for some people it's too minimalist, but it does count as legitimate QSO. And that's FT8. There's a lot written about it, so you should be able to find some stuff. When you video the pattern, you don't leave the carb heat on. Is there a reason to do that? This is the worst possible thing you could say to an FAA inspector. My flight instructor told me to, but that's the answer. Build a circuit, but can I get my hands on one part? Is there a way to replace 30 picofarad RF variable trimmer capacitor with 3 legs with something else or combination of? Go to rfparts.com Or, no, there's a big supplier that will take small orders. And maybe I'll think of the name by the end. If somebody else has it, you're going to have to mail order. You can mail order anything. Steve has nice words. Copper J-pole is also a very popular option, yes. Is it necessary to ground when operating portable? Usually not. Quarter wave ground plane is what I ran on my HT, yeah. Hot air isn't a dense, so less oxygen per volume, so your engine won't put out as much power. Yeah, I've noticed on my engine, I've got Jabiru 3300. It's a 120 horsepower engine, made in Australia. Turning on the heat on the carburetor doesn't seem to affect the speed. Similarly, turning one of the mags off and then the other off in turn doesn't seem to affect the speed very much either. Let's see. Do you recommend any push-up masts that go over 20 feet? MFJ makes one that goes to 33 feet, but it kind of loops around at the top if you put any weight on it. You'll J-pole from Ed Fong, yes, that's true, and he can give you 220 megahertz also, 3 bands. If you put up that MFJ, use something better than RG58. Bad coax will eat up all the power. I would recommend at a minimum RG8X. But you might want to go all the way up to RG213. The problem with that is it's expensive. So you're trading expense versus a little extra performance. Mouser, yeah, that'll do it. Gigaparts is a retailer for ham radio equipment. Multitask, throttle in, carb heat, and so on. Do you know of a book that has the diagrams for the old style regen receiver? Well, gee whiz, you might even find them in a current ham radio handbook. MFJ sells a regen receiver kit. I have one. You see them from time to time. You'll find them on the internet if you go look for them. Have you made contact with the ISS and their new repeater? I have not. I did with Mir. Remember Mir? Well, I'm dating myself. But I tried to do a connect and got a refusal from them. And so I sent something up, they sent something back. I figure, okay, I talked to Mir. That was the Soviet space station. That was a very, very long time ago. See if I told me the same thing Dave's told him. Yeah. If you leave the carb heat on, it does, on many engines, reduce the power. Okay. Dave, how much time do you spend on the airwaves? Not that much. 40 meters is my favorite band. Glenn says very nice things. Thank you. Yeah, it's still painful. Digikey and Mouser are the two. Shout out from the Philippines. Maravik, thank you. Okay, Walt Little AF7BD says, Dave, love your channel. My license expires 10/23. What's involved in renewal? Thanks, in 73. If you are a member of the league, just contact the league. They'll handle your renewal for you. If you are not, go on the FCC website. Go to the FRN, the licensing system, whatever it is, and you can renew it online in a matter of minutes. It's just, the problem is just finding the right place, but you can renew it online at no fee or anything. This next one is from Dell Morissette, WA7AQH. Does putting a copper or aluminum sheet bonded to the single point ground on the desktop under your radios do anything? No. I've heard it lowers the noise level. Is that true? I don't think so. If so, how does it work? I don't think you need to go to that length. Trust the new medication from April is working well. I guess it is. Okay, from Stewart. Golf. Mary 0. Golf Tango Uniform. Golf Mike. Is it possible to install WSJT, not WSJTX, on the Raspberry Pi? I would assume so. It's available for Linux. I've installed the HamPi distribution of my new Pi 4, but would also like to add WSJT, mostly for FSK 144, which is used in Europe more than MSK 144. Best regards from Stewart. Stewart, it's available for Linux, so you should be able to put it on the Raspberry Pi. I think you'd be fine with that. Bill Malman adds our first super chat of the evening, and thank you very much for that. That goes into channel funds. Optical Man 1 Jeff added $10 to the super chat, and it goes into channel funds. Thank you. Yeah, 40 meter sideband is kind of my preference. 20 meters if it's there. Mir outlived the USSR. Yeah. Sherwood, Arkansas. Well, they had a packet station on Mir, and you could do packet keyboard to keyboard with them. You know, for a long time, the Soviets, back when the Soviets and the U.S. got along a lot better than they are right now, NASA and the Soviets kind of divided the job that the West would make the satellites and the Soviets would make the rockets to get them into orbit. The Soviets had a lot of leftover rockets from the early days of their ballistic missile program that were supposed to have been destroyed, but somebody deliberately didn't. He hid them. And there are 50 or 60 of them in there, and that really has given the Soviets a great advantage for launch. Now, with the very mild resumption of the Cold War, believe me, this is nothing like what the Cold War was when I was in the service. We finally have an American space launch capability again, thanks to Elon Musk. And it's a shame because the space station up there is a Soviet, U.S., and other allied nations endeavor. And the crews get along fine. This one is from Bob Deeds, KI5HXQ. I'm a relatively new ham and I just passed my general, so I can start working on HF. Great. Something about antennas has always had me curious. I watched your J-pole antenna video explaining how J-pole works from the end that's dead short at DC to the ends where there's a high impedance. By the way, you can make equivalent, they're called ZEP antennas on HF. They're single band antennas. I've tested the MFJ ones for 40 and 20, and they work really well. They're J-poles for HF. Let's see, I know feeding DC current to the antenna would be just a dead short, so my question is this. Is it because we are feeding the antenna alternating current that it acts as an antenna? I suppose as the voltage rises, the current would go through the dead short. One thing you have to understand when you're dealing with antennas is that circuit theory, keeping track of where wires are and the current going through components and so on. Circuit theory is a subset of the more general theory called fields and waves. And antennas do not behave like circuits. They behave differently. They behave like antennas. And so the part where you have the parallel wires on the J pole, which is about 19 inches long, it's quarter wavelength, shorted at one end, open at the other, is actually not wires at all. It's a transmission line. It's a quarter wave stub of a transmission line. By being shorted at one end and open at the other, it has certain properties. The impedance where the short is 0. The impedance at the open end is theoretically infinite, actually just a few thousand ohms. And there is a point in between where it covers every impedance. And you can find a point where the impedance is 50. So if you feed it at that 50 ohm impedance right there, you excite the transmission line. And the end of it will be very high impedance, and so that's a very good match to end feed a dipole. And that's how it works. In those terms, you can understand it more easily. You can't explain how an antenna works in terms of circuit theory, because circuit theory is insufficient for it. You have to use transmission line theory for it. And so that's how it works. And I know that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. They're used to Ohm's law. Well, Ohm's law applies in transmission line theory, in antenna theory, but it's the impedance. Instead of R, we use Z for the impedance. It's the equivalent of R, but Z is a vector quantity. It has both an amount and a phase angle. By the way, I just got a check from the ARRL. They're publishing my article on this very subject of amateur radio mathematics in the November QST. So look in the November QST. They never sent me a draft of it, so I don't know if they abridged it or what they did. But it talks about this idea of combining impedance with a phase angle and a amplitude and so on. I know that's a very overly simplified explanation. Arrow's a good antenna maker, yeah. I want to know how to manage my channel like you. How did you build this? Well, I've only been working at this for about 10 years. So it's grown little by little, and it's grown by word of mouth. I've got about 74,000 subscribers now, including all of you. And so if you're a subscriber, you're an Augie. That's the... Where is it here? There, the OG. It's my call sign suffix, is the channel logo. I needed something that would fit in that circle there. So I picked OG. I tried putting KE0OG, but it was too small. So I just put OG. So we're all Augies in here. MSHV runs on Linux. Okay, and that does other things. Yeah, they probably have to have a rule about not talking politics while aboard the ISS. Burl Payne you can use. Okay, thank you for those recommendations. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the article. I'll probably do a video about it. You're feeding it beyond AC, you're feeding with RF, yes. Transmission line theory, brilliant channel. Okay, and GPN. Is it GPN? GPN. Thank you very much for the $5 that goes into channel funds. Looking forward to the article. Not October, yeah, it'll be in November. The October issue is out. It's available digitally. You can usually get it digitally 2 or 3 weeks before it arrives in the mail. Okay, here is one from KC3KYZ, page 313 of the 2020 extra book regarding satellite licensing and frequency privileges. If you have a general license and can afford to put a satellite, is limited to general class operations. Well, satellites all operate at VHF UHF. Okay, all hams have all privileges at those frequencies. So a tech can do that. It's only on HF where the privileges differ. So now, all of the satellites go through an organization called AMSAT. AMSAT is the amateur satellite. It's not American, it's amateur satellite. And so if you want to get a satellite launched, you're going to have to go through them. Now the Japanese launch their own, Chinese launch their own, and I think the Russians may launch their own. Getting a satellite into space is non-trivial. There's a lot of regulatory stuff you have to go through. But yeah, there's quite a few up there now, including one put up by the Israelis, or courtesy of the Israelis, that's at Geo, I think now. Okay, have you played around with HamPi at all? I haven't. I need to do that. I interviewed Dave Slaughter, who's the guy who put it together. That's Slotter, by the way. I used a DX80 with the antenna kit and RG8X, and RG858 cable was rubbish. Yes, RG858 is rubbish. Okay. Getting into DMR, that was a headbanger for sure, yeah. CubeSats are awesome. They're easy to put together. Okay, this one here is from Jeff Wittern. He showed us last week a picture of his AV640 up there, and he talks about a new antenna called the Eurocom SEHF X80 vertical radial antenna, and I thought one of the pictures would print, it didn't. It's an antenna that doesn't require radials. It's an end-fed antenna, and it has a balen at the bottom, and no counterpoises or anything. About $250 or so. There's another version of that antenna out, and I've not used either one. I'm going to have to get one of them and see if they really work. See what we can do with that. Yeah, the IS-SSTV. The SSTV is basically an audio signal. There is a piece of software called MMSSTV, put together by a Japanese ham, that you can use to decode that. This one right here is from Don, N5SKT, talking about different things you can do with the DX Commander antenna. I've got that. There was a guy up in Junction who offered to finish putting it together for me, and I've got his number here, and I need to call him and see if he's still interested in doing that. My assistant Julian has disappeared. He's gone back to Georgia. He's going to be there at least through Thanksgiving, and then he's going into the Air Force. He was able to pass his test, and he's going to become an aircraft mechanic, so he is qualified to go to aircraft mechanic school. I cautioned him that people can wash out of those things, so he's going to have to really be on his toes to make it through that. This DX Commander Classic, there's something called a Raleigh, R-O-L-Y, from ZL1BQD, that is a coil add-on that will get you 60 meters in all of 80. And he shows a little picture of it right here. There's the coil right there. So we'll have to look into that after I get that DX Commander built. Okay, Robert Schultz, KC0NFB. Bit of an argument going on over the internet in the discussion on J-poles. When you connect your SO239 to the J-pole, does it matter which part you attach the coax to? In other words, do you connect the center conductor to the stub, as in my videos? Can you swap around so the shield is connected to the stub? Does it matter? Does anything change? The answer is, the simple answer is no, it doesn't matter. The slightly more complicated answer is that the antenna is balanced and the coax is unbalanced. You really should put a few turns of there as a choke balen or something like that. But no, it doesn't matter, because it's a balanced antenna. You know, either way, it's symmetric. It doesn't matter. Okay. What advice would you give a new ham? One word. Persevere. Don't give up. Persevere. That's my favorite word. Persevere. Even if it takes a long time, doesn't seem to work out, you run into stupid people, whatever it may be, persevere. Go find a ham club. You may have to do a little club shopping to find the club that really works well for you. Find some friends who are hams, or encourage them to become hams. Get on the air. There are idiots in every universe, and unfortunately they have an outsized influence. You know, one idiot out of 100 people tends to make things a little difficult sometimes. And that's why I'm telling you to persevere. Do not give up. If you have some good QSOs, great. If you have a bad QSO with somebody who insists on lecturing you or something like that, just say thank you very much and change the channel. Persevere. That's my favorite word. That's what I'm doing with flight training. I got an awful lot of hours and I still haven't soloed, but I'm persevering. I'm going to see this thing through. So, okay. Speaking of the DX Commander, what do I think of the nebula? No idea. I don't know what it is. If I get my A55 tomorrow, we'll test the HFX80 vertical this weekend and let me know how it shakes out. Okay. Oh, it says that's not the coil. The coil sits at the bottom. That was my original config with wires. I pulled those and went with the coil. Okay. And Don DeGidio, a frequent contributor, says he was on 160 meter FT8 but was listening to the stream. Made several contacts tonight. My mail-in ballot for the general election arrived today and already mailed it back. Yeah, I would recommend that you take your ballot, your mail ballot. My wife and I'll tell you what my wife and I are going to do. We should be getting our ballots in the next few days. We're going to fill them out and we're going to take them down to the county courthouse and put them in the box right there at the county courthouse to make sure that they get there. Okay, I've got a few questions left over from last week. Let's see, I have an Agilent E4795 Bravo base station test. The warning stickers say DC may be present, apply no voltage. What does it mean? Not really sure. I need a little bit more context. Can you take a picture or so of that and send it to hamradioanswers@gmail.com? Is it bad etiquette to join more than one club? No, not at all. Join several clubs if you want. They have different interests. You may find that one club is more repeater-oriented, another more contest-oriented, and you enjoy both, so you go to both clubs. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Flight training, wow. Oh, yeah. That's from XE1GXG, so that's Mexico. The nebula's 60-foot pole with 3/4 wave vertical elements, including 80. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Do you have a tiny essay coming up for review? What is a tiny essay? I'm not familiar with that. Okay, this is from John K5RTR. Hi Dave, I'm investigating ways to send text messages via 2 meters or 70 centimeters. For reference, there's a product called PowerTalkie that does just that on FRS. Basically, a cell phone is connected to a transceiver and then sends text messages that are displayed on another cell phone, similarly connected. Okay. I've looked into APRS and packet. APRS, although it's for position reporting, does have a messaging capability. In fact, you can address those messages so that they actually go out into the general internet email system. And I've done that. I tried it. Of course, packet is keyboard to keyboard. Freeform. PowerTalkie runs a measly 2 watts and range is very limited. Is there a technology out there that would emulate the functioning of PowerTalkie but on ham frequencies? GMRS or FRS using a cell phone or radio? Yes, there is. There is a mode, and I don't know it. Maybe one of you will. This is used by some of the emergency response networks. You put the message on your phone, you punch the button, and it puts out a signal. Sounds like noise, digital signal. And you hold that up to your microphone, and the message will go out over the air to somebody else who's holding their cell phone next to the speaker, and you can get the message that way. And that's used by emergency responders. I think it's a 4-letter acronym starting with an M, and I'm not sure just what it is. My issue with it was that it was continuing to try to decode even when there was nothing to decode. It didn't know to shut off when the message shut off. But that is an easy way to get message traffic back and forth via ham radio. And the only connection is just audio. You know, just holding it up to the... This is from Naoki Matsushima. On this year, no ham fair was held in Tokyo. Yes. Small festival will be held on November 1st in virtual space. Oh, yes. It's JG1EJY. Yeah, I'd like to hear about that. Optical Man Jeff is very encouraging. And, it'll stop the bleeding before long. I should stop talking. That will do it. Tiny signal analyzer like the Nano VNA. Been working, going to the grocery store and Walmart throughout the whole pandemic, voting in person. Okay, well, good. The only thing I'm going to say about voting is to vote. Go do it. You who are citizens of the United States, this is probably the most precious right you have, is the ability to vote. Exercise it. Do it. Don't let any excuse stand in your way. No, that's all I'll say about it. What is wrong with my mouth? Joe, I talked earlier about how I had some serious dental work done today. I had all the teeth on the bottom pulled, and I've got some dentures that are sitting in there temporarily kind of holding things together. It'll take a day or two for it to settle out. I'd rather be doing this than sitting in a chair sulking because it hurts. I appreciate you guys very much. Okay. Let's see. MT63, I think that may be it. You can look that up. Yeah. Dave doesn't write tiny essays. No, I write long articles. What aircraft are you learning in? I own an aircraft. I'm the third owner. It was kit built from a company called RANS. It's Romeo Alpha November Sierra, RANS. And it's the model S6ES. The ES stands for extended span. It has a little bit bigger wing. It's a cool aircraft. It's just a two-seater. Very light. It's a light sport aircraft. Weighs like 750 pounds without anything in it. It's a very nice aircraft. I just like it. It's actually cloth, fabric covered. It's just cool. And that's what I'm learning to fly, and that's what I will be flying after I get my license, will be that aircraft. So I couldn't find a light sport aircraft to rent up and down the western slope here in Colorado. It's a very sparsely populated area. So I figured, okay, if I'm going to get trained, I'm going to have to get my own. So I went down and got my own in Phoenix and flew it back up here. So, okay. Yeah. RANS, R-A-N-S, S6ES, yes. You can look those up on the internet. Okay, so we're going to have to close. Hey, I made it the whole hour, which was my goal. I know it hurts, but it would hurt if we didn't do this, and I really enjoy this hour every week very, very much. I love you guys. I love talking to you about ham radio and enjoying things and just having a kind of an informal get-together and so on. Sometimes raise a little bit of money for channel funds, which is important to me. It helps me keep things going and so on. The most recent acquisition with channel funds is the Spectrum Analyzer. And I just did a couple videos showing the Spectrum Analyzer and what you can do with it. And I've got the reference station and so on. So thank you all very much for your support. I really, though I'm not a licensed pilot yet. I have a pilot license. It's called Student Pilot. And I'll be doing fine here. Next time we meet, a week from tonight, it'll be a whole lot better. So that'll be good. Thank you so much for your support. You guys are wonderful, guys and gals, and people from USA and from other countries. And what I say about voting goes for everybody around the world, and in whatever form of government you have and whatever elections you have. Play your part, do your part, be part of the system. This is what makes democracy function. So I'm going to say 73 to everybody, and until we next meet, 73.